Hello everyone and welcome to this new episode of Shredovani. Today we will see together the story of Renato Nicolaï. Renato Nicolaï is an Italian immigrant who lives in Trans-en-Provence, a small village in the south of France. It was January and it was a bit cold. He was in his garden making a small shelter for his garden cistern when suddenly he heard a faint whistling sound. It's a secluded place. There's no school, there's no factory, nothing that could make that kind of noise around. Intrigued, he will begin to scan the sky in search of this noise. This is when it will have an oval-shaped object. This object was moving in that direction, and what was strange was that there was no flame or exhaust. Nothing that indicated how the object was moving, Nicholas including immediately that it was not a plane. The object is descending very fast in this direction. He then wonders if the object will land, or rather crash, in his garden. The object passes him. He almost saw it land in his garden. He is convinced that the object crashed. Nothing for his life, he runs and wants to take shelter. Suddenly he hears a thud, the point as loud as if it were a crash. He then understands that the object must surely have landed in his garden. Curious to know what happened on his property, and if there is any damage following the landing of this object, he therefore decides to start looking for the landing place after several minutes. He discovers an oval-shaped object with a diameter of about 2 meters on a height of 1.50 meters. He seems to distinguish two outdated elements of this object, a kind of landing gear, Nicholas. He then decides to get closer to find out more about this mysterious object. He had no idea what he was looking at, but what was certain was that he had never seen this before. Then all of a sudden the whistling noise starts again. The object begins to move diagonally with an angle of 45 degrees. It rises to a certain point. Then stay in suspension for a few minutes. There is still no flame and no propulsion system except the object continues to rise, rotates 45 degrees, goes into the sky at full speed. That evening he will tell this story to his wife, but very skeptical, she will not believe him. However, the next evening, his wife makes the decision to call the gendarmerie for him to come and investigate. The gendarmes who went to the scene discovered 2 concentric circles and the ground seemed altered, so they took soil and plant samples. The GEIPAN, the organization that deals with all UFO testimonies in France, also came to investigate and take samples of soil and plants that were around the concentric circle. These samples were sent and analyzed by a competent laboratory. The results were very surprising. The plants showed a sharp reduction in their chlorophyll content, a bit as if the plants had undergone premature aging. This fact is usually perceived as a result of high radiation exposure. The soil, meanwhile, had undergone a peculiar chemical reaction. This chemical reaction occurs only when the temperature exceeds 600 degrees. This temperature corresponds to the types of heat emitted by the radiation of a microwave, but scientists do not understand how the object could have moved using microwaves. However, following these discoveries, the case made a big noise in the French media, and ufologists continued to investigate this strange incident. This is the end of this episode. Thank you for listening. Feel free to like and comment on this video if you liked it. We will meet again in the next video. It was Kick on Fire.